You walk into a room, there's a lot of noise, people talking fast, trying to prove something. Then there's one person standing still, not silent out of fear, but silent out of control. Calm, watching, saying nothing but commanding everything. You feel it, that presence, that energy. That's power. Real power doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to prove itself with volume. It speaks in restraint, in posture, in timing. We've been taught that to get ahead, we have to talk more, sell harder, speak up. But let me tell you something. It's not the loudest person in the room that wins. It's the most certain. And certainty doesn't always come with a raised voice. In fact, the people who are truly confident, truly grounded, don't need to fill the silence because they are the silence. They know that speaking isn't where the power is. It's in the pause, it's in the look, it's in the presence. See, silence is magnetic. When you're silent, not because you're shy, but because you're intentional, you become the person everyone else watches. You become the one they can't quite read. And in that mystery, in that stillness, lies your advantage. Because while others are reacting, you're observing. While they're reaching, you're receiving. While they're rushing to be heard, you're positioning yourself to be felt. Now, don't get me wrong. Words matter. What you say can shift a room. But it's not just what you say. It's when you say it. It's how you sit in the silence beforehand. That silence, it builds pressure. It creates focus. So when you do speak, every syllable lands. Every sentence hits. You're not just heard, you're remembered. And that's the game. That's how you win big. Not by chasing attention, but by commanding it. And you command attention when you stop trying so hard to get it. When you learn to hold space without filling it. That's when people lean in. They start to wonder what you know that they don't. What you're seeing that they missed. You flip the dynamic. You're not chasing the room is chasing you. Silence also gives you room to think, room to choose your words, your moves, your timing. Most people talk just to avoid discomfort, but discomfort is your friend. That tension in the room, let it build. That pause before you speak, let it stretch. Because in that moment, before you say anything, you're in full control. And when you do finally speak, you've earned every bit of attention. There's also something to be said about energy. The more you speak unnecessarily, the more energy you give away. You're leaking power. But when you speak less, when you conserve that energy, you're storing power. You become deliberate, focused, strategic. And people can feel it. They can feel that you are not just reacting to life, you're designing it. And in today's world where everyone's online yelling their opinion, trying to be seen, trying to go viral, silence makes you stand out. Discipline makes you rare. You're not reacting. You're not rushing. You're not desperate for validation. You're building, watching, preparing, and when you move with impact. Don't confuse this kind of silence with weakness. That's where most people get it wrong. They think if they're not talking, they're losing. No, you're winning. Because while they're draining themselves trying to be heard, you're gaining leverage. You're learning more. You're feeling more. You're becoming the one person no one can ignore. Because you're the only one who doesn't need to be seen. And paradoxically, that's what makes you impossible to miss. Let the others fight for the spotlight. Let them compete for attention. You don't need that. You're not here to prove. You're here to move. And silence moves people deeper than noise ever could. Because silence holds mystery. It holds tension. It holds power. It's the unspoken confidence that says, I don't need to convince you. I know. So walk into the room and say less. Let your presence say what your words can't. Let your silence carry your strength. Because real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't explain itself. It just is. And when you learn how to be silent, not as a sign of fear, but as a statement of force. You don't just influence the room, you own it. Speak less, feel more, do more, win big. Everybody's talking, everybody's making promises. Posting, pitching, planning. They say what they're going to do. They say what they could do. They talk about their next big move, their vision, their grind. But here's the truth. Talk is cheap. You want power, you want influence, you want to win? Then stop talking about what you're going to do and start doing it. Actions will always expose the truth. They'll always cut through the noise. Words are easy. Results are rare. You see, people get addicted to the sound of their own ambition. They talk about their goals like saying them out loud is the same thing as achieving them. But it's not. It's not even close, because the real players, the ones who build empires, shift industries, rewrite the rules, they're not out there constantly explaining themselves. They're too busy executing. They're not worried about telling you what they're doing. You just see it happen, you feel it. When you move in silence and build through action, you separate yourself from the crowd. While others are still in the idea stage, you're stacking wins quietly, consistently, relentlessly, and you're not doing it for applause. You're doing it because you know what's real, because you understand that success doesn't come from talking about it, it comes from living it. It's tempting, I know. You want people to see your effort, you want recognition, validation, but listen to me. If you need the world to clap for you before you've delivered results, you're already losing. You don't need external permission. You don't need to prove yourself with words. Prove yourself with outcomes. Let your execution do the talking. That's where the power is. And here's what most people don't realize. Action creates clarity. You can read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, journal every morning about your dreams, but until you move, until you act, nothing changes. Movement is momentum. You learn by doing, you evolve by failing forward. You become powerful by facing resistance, not by explaining your theories about success. So while others waste their energy polishing their pitch or posting their plans, you get to work. You stay quiet and build the thing they'll talk about later. That's legacy. That's dominance. That's how you win. Not with noise, but with proof. And the beautiful thing is this. When you build through action, you don't have to convince anyone of your value. People see it, people feel it, they can't deny it. You become undeniable, not because you told them what you were capable of, but because you showed them quietly, boldly. There's a deep, unshakable confidence that comes from doing the work, from knowing deep down that you're moving, building, creating, even if no one's watching, especially when no one's watching. Because that's where character is forged. That's where power is built, not in front of the audience, but in the silence of discipline, in the unseen hours, when it's just you, your vision, and your commitment. Most people don't last there. They want quick rewards. They want overnight validation, but that's not how winning works. Winning requires a long-term mindset. It requires patience. It requires discipline, and it requires the humility to shut up and get to work. I'm not saying never speak. I'm saying stop relying on your words to carry weight they haven't earned. Let your actions speak first. Let your results open the doors. Let your moves tell the story. Because when you operate this way, when you let action lead, you don't need to push. You pull. You attract opportunities. You attract respect. You attract power. You become someone people trust, not because you told them to, but because you've built a track record that speaks louder than anything you could say. And here's the real payoff. When you finally do speak, your words hit different. They carry weight. They land with force because they're backed by something real, something proven. So stop wasting time trying to be impressive. Be effective. Do the thing. Build the thing. Be the thing. In the end, success doesn't care what you say, it only responds to what you do. You know what most people miss? They're so focused on being heard, they forget to listen. They're so busy forming their next sentence, they don't actually hear what's being said. And that's where they lose. That's where power slips through their fingers, because the real players, the ones who win in business, leadership, relationships, they know something most people overlook. Silence isn't just about holding back your words, it's about opening your ears. Listening, truly listening, is a superpower. But I'm not talking about passive hearing, I'm talking about strategic listening, intentional, focused, observant, because when you stop talking, when you quiet your ego, you start to pick up on things other people miss. You hear what's not being said. You catch the hesitation in someone's voice. You notice the way the energy shifts in a room. You hear the gap between the words. And that gap, that's where truth lives. Most people are reacting. They're operating on noise, not insight. But if you just pause, if you just sit in the silence and listen, you start seeing everything more clearly. You stop missing the obvious. You start understanding people, not just what they say, but what they mean. And when you understand people, you can move them, influence them, outthink them, outmaneuver them. And that's the thing. Listening isn't just about being polite. It's about gaining leverage. Every conversation, every negotiation, every deal, it's a puzzle. And if you're talking too much, you miss half the pieces. But if you're silent, if you're patient, if you're watching, those pieces fall into your hands. You see where the power really is. You find the opening. And then, when the moment's right, you strike. Let me be clear, listening doesn't make you passive. It makes you precise. It's a strategy. It's a weapon. While everyone else is busy showing off how much they know, you're gathering data. You're learning their patterns, their fears, their tells. You're stacking information like ammunition. And when the time comes to act, you act with accuracy. No wasted motion, no guesswork, just clean, sharp execution. Listening also builds connection. See, people don't want to just be heard. They want to be understood. And when you give someone your full attention, not just fake nodding while you plan your reply, but really listening, you build trust, you build loyalty, and that's something money can't buy, that's something words alone can't earn. It's earned through presence. And it's not just about other people. When you develop the discipline to listen deeply, you start hearing yourself more clearly too. You tune into your instincts, your gut, that voice inside you that's always been there, but you were too loud to hear it. That voice, that's your edge. It tells you when something's off. It tells you when to move, when to stay, when to walk away. And the more you listen, the sharper that inner signal gets. You become more patient, more aware, more in control. You stop overreacting. You start responding with intention, with clarity, with power. That's what silence gives you. It creates the space to hear what matters. And when you hear what matters, now look, I get it. In a world that rewards volume, being quiet can feel like weakness, but it's not. It's dominance. Quiet people aren't empty. They're full. Full of awareness, full of observation, full of control. While others waste energy proving themselves, you're collecting power quietly, calmly, consistently. And in a world that's screaming to be heard, the person who listens becomes the one they all follow. There's a difference between making noise and making impact, and too many people confuse the two. They think that if they speak often enough, post loud enough, shout long enough, they'll win. But real winners, those who play at the highest levels, don't speak all the time. They speak at the right time. They choose their moments. That's where power lives, not in how often you talk, but in the precision of when and how you speak. You see, when you speak constantly, people stop listening. You become background noise, predictable, easy to ignore. But when you hold back, when you're silent, by design, when you wait until the room needs your voice, that's when your words hit with force, because people notice what's rare. They value what's scarce. And if your voice only shows up when it matters most, they learn to pay attention. Let that sink in. It's not about being silent forever. It's about being strategic, being intentional, saving your voice for the moments that actually move the needle. Because when you train yourself to speak only when it matters, you change the way people experience you. You stop blending in. You become sharp, clear, commanding. Look around. Most people are leaking power through constant talking. They argue just to feel heard. They explain themselves to anyone who doubts them. They try to defend every decision, justify every move. But here's the truth. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. Not every critic deserves an answer. Not every moment requires your commentary. When you choose silence, you choose control. And that control builds gravity around you. People feel it. They feel that you're not easily pulled, not easily baited. You're not reacting to the world, you're shaping it. And when you do speak, you shift the energy in the room. Not because you said a lot, but because you waited, you watched, you listened, you learned. And then with one clean, powerful sentence, you change the direction of the conversation. That's leadership. That's influence. That's mastery. And it's not just about public speaking or meetings. This is everywhere. It's in your relationships, your business, your day-to-day communication. When you stop talking just to fill space, you start talking with purpose. And people feel that shift. You become someone they want to hear from, not because you talk often, but because when you do, it's worth something. This is where silence becomes a form of discipline. Anyone can talk, anyone can react, but it takes strength to wait, to observe, to choose your moment. That's power most people never even tap into because they're too busy being performative instead of being intentional. When you speak less and choose your moments, something else happens too. Your words carry more trust. They carry more weight. Why? Because people know you're not just speaking to be seen. You're speaking because you mean it. You've thought it through. You've considered the timing. And that gives your voice authority. Think of it like this. Imagine there's a bell in the middle of a village. If it rings every 5 minutes, people tune it out. But if that bell only rings when something important is about to happen, everyone listens. Everyone stops. Everyone turns. Your voice should be that bell, not background noise, a signal, a trigger, a turning point. You're not here to be loud. You're here to be effective. You're not here to win debates. You're here to win results. And results come when you stop chasing validation and start controlling attention. You don't get there by being everywhere. You get there by knowing exactly when to show up. People will ask, why don't you speak more? Let them. Let them. Wonder. Let them lean in. Because that's how you flip the power dynamic. You're not trying to get attention, you're creating mystery. You're not trying to dominate every space, you're owning the right spaces. And when people don't know when you'll speak next, but they know it'll matter when you do, now you've got influence. Now you've got presence. Now you've got the leverage. This is the essence of real communication, saying the right thing at the right time to the right people and letting silence do the rest. Most people talk because they're uncomfortable with silence. But if you can sit in the silence, own it, use it, you become unforgettable. So choose your moments. Speak with intention. Let the silence build your stage. And when the spotlight finds you, don't waste it. Say something that lands. Say something that lasts. Say something that moves. Because when your words are rare, they become priceless.